Welcome to Breakthrough to Brilliance podcast. My name is Seema Giri, your host. I'm an international speaker, best-selling and award-winning author, book writing mentor, publisher, and event producer. This podcast is about grit, perseverance, and I bring real-life stories to you of healing and transformational journeys so that you know that you can create a life on your own terms. Welcome to Breakthrough to Brilliance podcast. It's so wonderful to be here another week with you for another episode. And today we have this amazing guest speaker, Jenn Taylor. Jenn, welcome to our podcast today. I'm so happy to have you here.
I am so happy to be here. I've been really looking forward to it.
Me too. So before we get started with this amazing interview, we are going to do a short grounding exercise so we can be totally here and present for you. So let's start with closing our eyes. And don't close your eyes if you're driving, just follow along with us. Take a deep breath, deep cleansing breath all the way down to your belly. And with the exhale, just exhale anything, any worries, any tension, anything that you have going on right now. With the next breath in, just feel where you might have any kind of tension on your body, any stress, anything. And with your next exhale, just exhale all of that out. And with your next breath in, I would like you to bring your awareness to your heart. You might even want to put your hand over your heart. And I would like you to bring into your awareness one happy moment. It could be from today, yesterday, any time period in your life. And just think of how that made you feel at that time and relive that experience as if you're experiencing it for the very first time. So use all your senses. How did you feel at that moment? Who were you with? What was the smell? What was the taste? And just experience that. Take that in as if you're doing it for the first time. And with your next breath in, I would like you to bring your awareness to the top of your head, to your crown chakra, and think of a second happy moment. Again, this can be from any time period of your life. And I want you to relive it as if you're living it for the very first time. Just experience the same joy, that bliss. See who was around you, how it made you feel. What was the ambiance like? Were you laughing? Were you smiling? Were you running? Were you dancing? And just experience that in. Take all that in. And with your next breath, I would like you to open your heart and open your mind even more and see what is possible for you when you hear our conversation today. Maybe something that you need to hear for yourself, or maybe it's for someone else and you are the messenger. And for Jenn and I would like us to open up our hearts and mind and see what is possible for us and tune into the moment to see what our listeners, our audience needs to hear from us today. And with the next breath in, we will be totally and completely in the here and the now, in the present. You may open your eyes with a great big smile. So, Jenn, when we did this meditation, what came into your heart?
I thought about taking my youngest daughter and my 3-year-old granddaughter to the park yesterday. And, we should all be that happy, just filled with joy about doing something that's really so easy that seems like it's a pain sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And I am a firm believer that we don't look back in our past at the positive moments or even the silver linings in our tough moments. So I love taking a moment to think about the things that make me happy. And then the next thing was every day when my husband comes home from work, he is lit up from inside and excited to see me and to share our day. And it never gets old. It just never gets old. So it's every day. It doesn't matter what the ambiance is like outside because he is just lit up from within. And so I always know how excited he's going to be to see me. Well, that's a really nice thing to know.
Yes, and that is so beautiful. Wow, that just feels so good. And wow, I just can't say anything more after that.
Pretty
Well,
spectacular. It's pretty great.
yeah, and how long have you been married?
We've been together for 7.5 years.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's how it should be when you're with the right person, right? That's
Yeah.
exactly how every day should be. So, with that, I'm going to jump in and give a formal introduction of Jenn Taylor. So, Jenn Taylor is a mom of 18 and the naked podcaster. She's a transformational coach for Christian women and a motivational speaker. She is an NLP practitioner and has 15 years in the foster care sector as both a parent and a trainer, and has written a blog, Mom's Running It, for over 9 years, and is a published author of a self help memoir, Hello, My Name is Warrior Princess. She teaches gaining freedom through compounding joy, bringing fast, easy, actionable exercises to people to increase their joy and gratitude. She's also married to an amazing man in Reno, Nevada. She's a runner, minimalist, and a healthy lifestyle enthusiast. Well, and our topic today is Mom of 18 and at Crossroads with the Naked Podcaster. Wow. So first of all, I think we all want to understand this. What is a naked podcaster?
It's bearing it all spiritually and emotionally. So at a crossroads is just a point in your life where you know a decision needs to be made and you want it to be positive. So we've all been at lots of crossroads, right? And some of the situations, I was divorced. So getting a divorce isn't a positive situation, but it's a silver lining, like I said before, the silver lining within those. And compounding joy is just using the theory of compound interest. It's small, easy daily actions that add up over time.
Yes.
So, I mean, compound interest is pretty easy for people to understand. And I remember in high school learning that and thinking, oh my gosh, everything in life is compound interest. It's either working for you or against you. And that's something I taught my kids. Like, look at the friends that you have. Look at how your work ethic, look at all of the things, aspects in your life. And are you doing the small, easy daily actions that add up in a positive way, or are they adding up in a negative way? And so even when we're faced with really tough decisions or struggles or traumas or moments, there are always silver linings in that we can find. And at a crossroads is it's time to make a decision. The Naked Podcaster is bearing it all spiritually and emotionally. So it's just a way. For 4 years I've had the podcast, over 4 years now. My goal is to connect your faith with a more purpose-driven life. And that looks different to a lot of people, but
That is true. That is true. And that's also similar to what our podcast is all about. It's about the same thing, sharing your transformational journeys, which is really, living your best life, which can only come if you're living your authentic self, being who you are meant to be, and getting through those tough, challenging times where you really have to bear your soul out and really get to the core, resolve that, and then be able to move forward with that. So,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So, Jenn, how have you moved into the Christian woman niche, and how has that been with your internal battle?
Oh my gosh, what a great question. Seema, that is a great question. I
Thank
would
you.
no one's asked me that. I get so excited when it's a new question. Um, I would say people ask you, well, when did you become a Christian? And I don't remember a time I didn't feel that. I remember being a little kid and my faith in God just being part of the cells of my being. I don't know how else to describe it. I thought everybody felt like that as a kid, your own internal beliefs and compass. You kind of think everybody has that same stuff. And I realized it's looked different over periods of my life. And there have been periods of my life where I didn't go to church or I didn't speak out about it. And there was a long time I thought, if I'm passive about my faith, but I'm a good example, that's enough. And I don't think that that's entirely true. When I changed my niche or my demographic from executive women, or the podcast was just self-help, to specifically honing in on Christian, this is what I can tell you. My two best friends are agnostic at best. So we don't have the same viewpoints about spirituality, Christianity, religion. Those are all big trigger words, right? But we don't have the same beliefs. And they were my biggest cheerleaders. And one of them said, I've never seen you so lit up. And that is what you want when you are really bearing it all and serving this demographic, this niche that lights you up the most. When, like you just said, you step into the fullness of who you are. I can be raw and authentic in lots of different ways, but they're only parts of my personality. So when I really, really embraced working with Christian women, it lit me up. And it took all of those pieces and put them all together for me. So for me, it was really exciting and really easy and completely terrifying.
Wow. I agree with you. When you pick an area to work in, they always say the more you niche, the better it is. And it's supposed to light you up. It's supposed to make you, fun and easy, and you feel great about it. That's what I would like to let our listeners know. That's one way of knowing whether you're in the right niche or not. Sometimes we think that because of our experience, because of the education that we're in, that is exactly what we have to focus on. But it's not so. And then many people think that if you don't focus on your educational background and the 20 plus years of experience you have in a particular industry, then you're going to lose everything that you've worked for so far. And that's not true. They're all transferable skills, and you gained wisdom from all that you always carry into whatever you're doing. So I would encourage our listeners to think about, are they really being lit up, or they feel it to their core in their heart in what they're doing? And if not, then what does light you up? So, Jenn, you've been divorced 3 times,
I have.
right? And at 50, how did that make you feel like a failure?
Oh, at 50, which is how old I am now, I don't feel that way. That was a long journey. We can be great coaches and still have our own traumas that we're working through. At the time, and part of this again is my Christian faith. It's not what you're supposed to do, right? It's not what I didn't say I do till death do you part, thinking that, like, unless, insert clause here, you don't think or expect that to happen. I also felt like there are situations where, if we've done therapy, if we've done all of the steps to try to make things work and they still can't. I had a pastor who was a licensed therapist say to me once, you have a couple choices. You can stay in the situation the way it is now and accept it, or you can decide to leave, but changing it isn't what's going to happen. And it's really difficult. And it was the most embarrassing thing I could ever talk about, was being divorced 3 times. The most embarrassing, biggest sense of failure, because I didn't get married to give up.
Mhm.
I also didn't get married to tolerate certain behaviors or attitudes or treatment. And that's something that's very personal that you have to navigate. And this is what's super interesting. In the last couple of years, I've been asked to speak several times as an expert in relationships. And I thought, how how is that possible? I've been divorced 3 times. Maybe I'm an expert in ending them, but It's actually the experience of failure, if you want to put that in quotes, the experience of working really hard in a relationship and having it end that created a very specific kind of expertise for me, not in ending relationships, but in how to be successful in them. And what a way to flip the script on
Mhm.
successful relationships. And the first time I was asked, I was like, are you kidding me? Really? Like, do you know my statistics? Yeah. And who better to talk about being an expert and having a successful relationship than someone that has gone through things that have situations that have ended relationships. So, and here's the other thing with that quote failure with women, our name changes usually, right?
Mhm.
So I always felt like, you get a tattoo with the person's name, then you cross it out, you tattoo the next person's name, cross out, because on even on job applications, you have to write down what last names that you've gone under. And it was embarrassing to me. And I thought, there are men who have had just as many, if not more, relationships. And the benefit to being man is that your last name never changes. If my last name never changed, nobody would know that information on any application that I have to do, from the
Right.
IRS to a job. So I think it's partly just letting go of what does success mean and what does failure mean, and what does being an expert mean and how can you gain expertise, and just knowing that all of those steps led me to where I am and being okay with who I am.
Well, and I see it as knowing you have some non-negotiables for yourself and you put your foot down and decided that's not how it's going to be, even though it took 3 times. It's you're still very adamant at saying, no, this is who I am and this is how I don't want to be treated, and this is what's important to me. And if the values, I mean, people do grow in different ways. And although your values could have been the same at the time you met and decided to get married, you grow in different ways and things change. And if your non negotiables are not being met in the way you need, there's no reason to continue in staying. Um, many women, what they do is stay too long and they get hurt even more. So, I mean, I think that's commendable. That's really courageous to do that.
Thank you. It was scary. It was definitely scary. And sometimes, I mean, I think in healthy relationships, you grow together. There's not necessarily a growing apart. You can have different things that you're interested in, but you grow together. You have those conversations. And in some relationships, you grow apart. And what maybe in the beginning wasn't acceptable, a monogamous relationship is one. Prison is another one. Putting your family first, emotional abuse. These are all things that I didn't think we'd have to have conversations about. I felt like those were things that were non-negotiable that we knew from the beginning. You cannot control the other person changing and deciding to go a different direction. And it is important to stay true if that is not the direction you want to go.
Exactly, exactly. And I have to tell you, Jen, there's no way that you look 50 at all.
I am definitely 50. Thank you. I'll be 51 at the end of this year of 2021. I was born in 1970 and I don't get Botox. So
Wow. Amazing.
thank you.
So another word of encouragement to our listeners is, you know, when you're living in your truth and when you're doing what you love, it shows on your body.
Mm.
It really shows on your body. So getting older is nothing scary, even if you hit the big numbers. Just enjoy life and have fun, and that's going to make all the difference in the world. So, what does mom of 18 mean? Are you really the mother of 18 children? You've mentioned
Yes.
about foster parenting and all of that, so I'm assuming it's all of that too.
Yep. I am mom of 18. There's 18 children. There's not one who is 18. There's actually 18 children. And that has been quite a journey. Absolutely quite a journey. I went through infertility and I ended up getting pregnant 7 times and giving birth 4. And then I did foster care. That was really important to me because of how I grew up. And that you mentioned my book. My book is about how I grew up and the dysfunction that I went through. And that was a huge catalyst to starting the podcast, because my story was one story and the podcast helped other people tell their story. It's like writing a book in an hour and taking the struggle and twisting it so that you're looking at it from a lens of, well, what great things came out of these struggles. That was really important to me. And that's what my guests do to help other people in their struggle. So I did foster care and 4 adoptions and 2 kids that were long-term. And then I was divorced. So that was 10. And I continued to work in very specific ways in foster care. I adopted 1 more and took 3 more long-term. And that's 14. I was single, and my oldest daughter, who's now 29, when she was 20, she and a really good friend of mine started fixing me up on dates, which I wasn't excited about doing, but was really fun in hindsight. And they introduced me to Dane, and Dane had 4 kids and his wife had died. So that's where we got 18. I had 9 living at home when we met, and then I was down to 8. And so we moved in together with my 8 and his 4, and we had 12 in the house. I've had 11 or 12 under the same roof for a lot of years. I've never had more than 12 at one time out of the 18. And the picture of the most kids at once, there was 14 kids at one time. I've never gotten a picture taken with more than 14 kids. I can get like 7 to 11. There's lots of pictures of 7 to 11 kids, but 14 was the biggest one. And that one was taken 4.5 years ago. Actually 5.5 years ago. And the reason that I use it everywhere is because one of my children died 4.5 years ago, and he's in that picture. So not only have I never gotten 14 children in one place again, but also I won't ever get a picture with him in it. So, that photo is going to stand the test of time. Even though we all age, that one's going to stay there for those 2 reasons. So yeah, 18 kids. It's crazy and it's fun and it's an adventure. And you do it one day at a time. It's not a competition. Once you're a parent, you're a parent. So 1 or 20, we're all parents with the same struggles. And it's been really fun. And part of why it's fun for me and I've loved it is because I chose my life. Even with divorces and moves and struggles and traumas, I still chose my life. And when you come to those crossroads where things are not what you want them to be, it's a period of time that you can choose differently.
Mhm.
And so regardless of the tough stuff, I chose my life and I love it. And that includes those 18 kids.
Wow, that's amazing. I didn't think I could handle more than 2, and I stopped at that. So it's really amazing, and so much compassion and such a big heart that you have for doing the foster parenting, just, even though you had your own children. And that is so needed. So people like you are so much needed in this kind of world that can go beyond that. And we know parenting is a 24/7 job. It can get crazy. It can get, very tough. And for you to go through that, I mean, you are one brave and strong woman, Jen.
Might be crazy, a little crazy in there too, but you know what? I loved it and it was important. And I think of it as I said no to more kids than I said yes to. And I didn't have a number, but I never would have anticipated it would hit 18.
Mhm.
And I feel eternally blessed. And here's the other thing with kids. Yeah, they're tremendously hard and people think, "Oh, you have a big heart and you made a big difference." These kids made a bigger difference in me than I will ever be able to have made in them. And that's the biggest thing I think with parenting that you don't realize. Our focus is always on what raising that child and putting out the fires and doing the best we can and making that difference. But if you sit back and reflect, you realize that they made a much more significant positive difference in my life.
So how many are with you now?
1. I'm down to 1. I know, it's astounding. The kids that were kind of that aged out and stayed a long time, they range in there, they go up to 34 years old. And biologically, my oldest daughter's 29. So my youngest daughter's 11, and there's an 8-year age gap. So she's like an only child in a huge family. And we knew our kids from that 18 to 34 year range. I mean, there's 17 kids in 18 to 34 years old. So it was pretty condensed. We had a lot of kids very close in age for a really long time. And that meant 3 in diapers and 2 breastfeeding on the front end. And on the back end, it meant that they moved out pretty rapidly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know as a mother, I started having that empty nester syndrome quite early on when my kids were in high school. How was that for you?
I don't have it at all. And this is a huge thing I coach about too. It's maintaining your identity. I made sure at first it was kind of a happy accident, and then it was a lot of intention. I made sure that I had things that I loved that were about me. Running is one of them. And yeah, my kids got dragged to that stuff until they were old enough to decide that they didn't want to go. If that was the decision that they made. But I never lost who I was. Being a mom is one of the things that I am. And I mean, it's my website, Mom of 18. It's a huge part of what I do. It's probably the biggest pie piece of my life, but it's still one. I am always their mom. That never goes away. But what I do when they leave the house is all the things, the other pieces of that pie. So I never had trouble with identity or losing myself in that empty nest syndrome because I really knew what made me lit up personally, aside from having kids. And I think it's really, really important. We talk a lot about self-care, and I don't think self-care is a pedicure as much as I do reminding yourself of who you are outside of your spouse and your kids.
I totally agree with you. That is so important. Yeah, because motherhood, parenthood is one component of our life. And we make that, and there's a time where you have to, the only part of your life. And then we soon forget. And that same thing happened to me in when my kids were in high school. I started seeing that they're becoming more independent. They needed me less. And that was the time that I also started exploring what are the other things, other possibilities, and started building my business around that. Started looking at, I was in project management for a long time. My husband and I had our own business. I wanted to get out of that business. And then I started exploring, who am I? Because Jenn, I had forgotten who I was. I was supporting my husband in his business. I was raising the kids. We were moving around the country, taking care of my mom when she got lung cancer. So I was everything to everyone, and I lost myself in that. But pretty quickly during high school, I was able to reunite myself with me and identify what is working. And so by the time they were graduating high school, I had my business started, and we had, I had some other areas to focus on. So as they were growing out and going to college and starting all of that, now my business is at a level where I'm just as busy as they are with their own thing. And it is no, that emotional breakdown that some others have during this stage. So to our listeners, I would say, if you are in that stage or maybe not in that stage, it's always important to really know who you are in all of the relationships, who you are on your own, and start identifying what is it that you like to do. Start carving some time out for yourself, and see what lights you up. I understand you have a free gift for our listeners.
Yeah, I have the free PDF of my book, so I can send that to anyone. I can give you the link and you can send it out. And I also offer a free quiz to help you determine what gives you purpose, passion, and drive.
Amazing. So, and all of these links will be in our show notes, so make sure you check that out. Jenn, thank you so much for being with us. It was so great having you here today.
Thank you, Seema. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too. And until next time, I'll see you in the next episode. This is Seema. I hope you enjoyed our time together. I know I did. Through this transformational journey, I hope you could see yourself taking similar steps, breaking free to your brilliance, and creating the life that you desire. Please subscribe to our Break Free to Brilliance podcast at your favorite listening place.